people who have huge jaws, and they're based on their jaw size. Their skulls were like decently bigger than ours. That tells the people that they're like 8 feet tall. Like on average.
Oh, you're talking about giant or dwarves?
Giant people, right? Dwarfs, there's evidence, there's very good evidence of the dwarfs. Very good evidence. There's living people who are dwarf, descended from that line.
You mean there are also people are, it's not like genetic defect?
Not. So to call it dwarf is a little bit confusing because what you're talking about is the fantasy dwarf, right? What I'm talking about is a group of people who are all consistently smaller, like very small, like 4 foot tall, 4.5 foot tall. But my guess is that the fantasy dwarf actually comes from the dwarfs that we talk about, because why not? You know, they used to mine in the old times, just the same like they mine now. Different.
They used to mine? That's so dwarf in the fantasy.
What I'm getting to. Well, yeah, you already connected the dots. People used to mine for gold, silver, minerals, whatever.
So they are like in underground for so long.
And you gotta dig a hole when you go down to get gold and silver and whatnot, because the deeper you gotta go. They weren't doing strip mining. They didn't have explosives. They were digging. Okay, so the less you have to dig, the better. Less work, go deeper. So they use children, dwarfs, go down into the holes. Dwarfs mining.
But so you're talking about the line of dwarf is still alive.
There's a different now. Just forget all that in your head about dwarfs.
The shorter people.
Yeah, there's still people today. Yeah. And there's archaeological evidence of
where
people.
Where there are?
The Southeast Asia, like islands, Indonesian islands, South Peninsula, all that region. There's a lot of groups of homos. You can look on that book if you want. And we branched out in multiple waves. Like people left Africa, like boom, and then again, right? They just different times. They would go out in big waves. So after the first wave, people went out again, and they're not communicating with those people. They don't really even know that they're out there, and so they go out in the world.
How big a gap are you talking about?
1,000 years, whatever. I don't know, man. It's an archaeological record, 100,000 years span.
Okay.
And so people go out again, and there's already people who have moved out there, right? That have evolved to the new circumstances. So, slowly changing, but changing enough for them to be like, wow, you're different, right? But they're close enough that we can breed with them. So they're different enough, because it's been some time, but not so different that they're different. They haven't speciated yet. And we interbred with those. There's evidence in our DNA that we have Neanderthal DNA and Denisovian DNA and all these different groups of homos, people, the people lineage, right? That went out and started to call. If we left them alone, they would have speciated. Like if somehow they got locked off, they would have speciated and become their own thing.
Wait, is there any human that got trapped in some island or something like that, and you can't breed with them?
No. It never got that far.
Okay.
But there are people who got trapped, and they became these really midget, really small. I'm terrible as a teal. Pygmy people, and I'm not talking. The Congo pygmies are Congo pygmies. Yeah, they're probably something like that. But there's people who live on islands, and there's pygmy elephants and pygmy rhinos.
Pygmy?
Pygmy means like it looks the same in proportion. It's just smaller, like a pygmy elephant, like a mini. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Pygmy. It's just like the same thing. It's just like, so there's these pygmy elephants, pygmy rhinos, and these pygmy people who live on these islands in the Indian Ocean, because they got separated and never got connected. There's probably a lot of those smaller types of people.
Yeah.
Right? It makes sense in the jungle. It's easier to climb trees. Bone density is bone density, man. A lot of our weight is bone density. And when you get big...
You can have smaller bones?
Huh?
You can have smaller bones?
Still heavy, though.
That's true. The bird bone density I heard is really, really
The bird bone's like hollow. Those people are probably really good at living in the forest. They can get through the bushes easily. They can go up the trees easily. They can fit in the little crevices and sleep in the trees and sleep in little holes. But they live in the jungles with And when people found them, they're like, what the fuck, are these even people? And then they found some people up in Russia, some remains, dead people from the old ancient times, that is really small in stature. Like really small people.
Why do you only find small people, not the giant people?
They did. I started the whole story by saying that they found some remains of giant people too.
Which part of Earth?
I think like the Middle East.
Okay.
Something like that. But they're all over. They found them in Africa too. Mm-hmm. Everything was different back then. All the climate was different. It's not the same. It's not like they're living in the desert. Mm-hmm. But the jaw is what they knew. They can tell from their jaw that they're huge.
What if they're just disproportionate? Like giant head?
No, I don't think so. I think it makes sense. No, there's another thing that they knew. Somehow they can tell a lot. When they get the top of a skull, the reconstructive scientists are really happy. Because they can tell a lot from the sagittal crest, like the crest that the two pieces of the skull plate come together, and it creates like a little mountain. This is just exaggerating so you get the idea. But for us, it's like really small. For gorillas, it's actually kind of big. But for us, it's small, but there's a lot of information in there, apparently. So they can tell like the peak they can tell. Something about that crest, the sagittal crest, they can learn a lot of information about musculature and about how long the bone density, how long things live, the type of nutrients they take in. They just learn a lot from that part of the skull for some reason. I don't know why. I just remember watching one documentary about discovering people, and they were geeking out about finding a skull that had like a partial sagittal crest because they could learn so much from it. And the teeth, they learn a lot from the teeth. So they're happy when they find that. The scientists are happy when they find stuff. See, there's all sorts of people all over the planet. Now, here's what we just got to keep in mind. Yeah. All these stories that like are common, right? We take for granted. It's almost hard not to think of those stories when you think of fantasy, right? Yeah. Dwarves, elves, dragons, knights, all that kind of stuff, right? The people who has a horse, barbarian, horseman, right? Yeah, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. It's all just come from? It's you can't even copyright it. It's like collective mythology. We're getting at that, right? Where does it come from? It comes from the stories, the actual happenings of people that have been passed down from generation in verbal stories, oral stories. And then it gets lost because people think, it's not real, it's just a fantasy, so they take it way too extreme. Like a body of a man on the flesh of a horse or something like that. But originally the stories were about horse people, and maybe the people back then spoke in a different way, a more poetic way, where you wouldn't be able to differentiate. Like a man and a horse and a horseman. Maybe just some men who like riding horse a lot. If I call him a horseman, what do you think I mean? If I told you, I was out in Mongolia and I saw a bunch of 20 horsemen, you'd be like, 20 guys riding horses. You wouldn't even think twice about it. That might have been what they understood back then, right? But then it gets passed down to the down, right? The herds of horsemen live up in the mountains, and then they mythologize it and make it seem like some magical thing that doesn't exist. I think that they all come from things that actually happen. Dwarves, all sorts of cyclops, monsters, all that kind of shit that they come up with. Cyclops. Maybe some people got a defective one. Actually, I think cyclops comes from they found elephant skulls. Okay. Where they found fossilized woolly mammoth skulls, because the elephant skull has 2 eye sockets, but it has a huge hole where the nose goes. If you look at an elephant or a mammoth skull, there's a huge hole where the nose goes, and it looks like a giant eye hole, and then it looks like the thing would have 2 big teeth, like 2 big tusks coming out, with like a giant eye nose for it. And it would be huge because it's a fucking elephant, right? That makes sense. That makes sense. That's what I think, at least. But I mean, I don't know. It's all speculation. But all those things, I think, and that's just one small example, come from some real. Dragons are easy. Dinosaur bones. It's the easiest dot to connect. People think there's dragons not because they've seen dragons, but because they've seen dinosaur bones, and their imaginations went wild with it, and maybe in the night they hear something they think is a dragon, or maybe something like that, right? It's interesting that in Chinese, dragon and dinosaur are the same words. Yeah, because you guys didn't forget. That's clearly what we're talking about, right? Yeah. It's clearly the same thing. I mean, to me, it's obvious that's where else would we have just come up with the idea of a giant lizard? You can speculate and say, oh yeah, I mean, people just pick the dragon because it's scary. People are afraid of snakes or whatever. Yeah, okay, that's one way to do it. Or because there's giant, basically dragon bones that are capable to be found by people.
Yeah, but the human actually made up some stuff like blowing fireballs. It's one thing that's pretty common for dragons.
Yeah, I heard from a psychologist that he thinks, now this is blending the two thoughts, that comes from poisonous snakes. Because if you get bit by a poisonous snake, it burns.
Oh.
The feeling is burning, right? So from the mouth comes a flame, like a burning flame, right? Maybe that makes some sense, and associate the reptiles with the dragons, right? Or maybe it's just a terrifying thing, like a giant thing that also just fucking blasts fire. I don't know. Who knows?
So speaking of dragon, I'm thinking about Chinese dragon.
Yeah.
The Chinese dragon actually looks like snake.
It's much more like snake-like, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
And the whole ideas behind the Chinese dragon is different too. I always found that fascinating.
Would you know how much you know about Chinese dragon?
The Chinese dragons are kind of the forces of nature.
Uh-huh.
Dragon for the mountain, dragon for the river, dragon for the area, right? And then
no.
they live in the ocean, or they're connected with the water and the clouds and all that stuff, right?
I mean, at least based on what I know, the dragon represent an ocean. Like this, they are the king of the empire of some ocean. Like the East Ocean has a dragon, the West Ocean has a dragon. And they live in the palace inside the ocean. And they is the one control the weather.
So the dragons are like gods.
They are Poseidon.
They're all like Poseidon. Right?
They're pretty much like Poseidon.
Yeah, it's curious that the Chinese chose a non-human thing, because the Western tradition typically represents the forces of nature, just like Chinese or Japanese or whatever. With a human, with a humanized figure. Like, this is the guy who's the god of the mountain, or this is the girl who's the god of the grass, or whatever. But you guys actually took like a different animal and said like,
well,
this
that's
is
interesting
the god.
though. I think anything else is like that.
No, I was just scanning my head too.
Yeah.
The zodiac isn't really like that. It's not.
No,
like the zodiac.
none of the zodiac except dragon is any god.
It's just the dragon, right?
And is dragon the only fantasy animal in the zodiac? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, if you want to call it fantasy, but yeah, it's the only animal that's not still around. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Western zodiac, I don't even think has a dragon.
No.
Not even the Western dragon. Yeah, the Chinese dragon versus the Western dragon.
Chinese dragon means like good wealth and
that's the second aspect. There's positivity.
It's
the Western
all
dragon
positivity.
is all dark. It's all a challenge. All the dragon represents is an obstacle to overcome to get a girl or to get money. That's it. You don't see much else with dragons. It's like you conquer the dragon, you get gold, and you get a girl. Typically, a girl is involved with it, and gold on the side. Or her dad's rich, and you save her and get the money from her dad, and you get her.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Like that cartoon movie, Shrek.
Dude, every cartoon, every story, Legend of Zelda, the original one, is so basic. It's just like you're just a dude with a sword running around, fight the big boss, and get the girl. It's like the basic man story.
Except the Mario, except it's not dragon, it's a dragon turtle. What's Bowser?
Like a dragon. It's like a dragon turtle. Yeah, dragon. Well, in the Christian, because the Christians get their idea of the dragon, and that's the devil. Then it gets real dark, because the medieval dragon isn't like evil. It's just a beast. It's just a beast that you should overcome. But when the Christians get involved with it, then the dragon is like malicious, like satanic.
But is it two type of dragon?
Huh?
Is it two type of dragon?
No, there's dragon. Dragons are dragons. Everybody's got their own conception of it.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, the one concept of the dragon is just like, this is just a big monster. It doesn't care about you. It'll just burn you up, eat you up. Doesn't really care about you, right? Like we face that all the time in wild nature. Bears, wolves, all that kind of stuff. So that's understandable. So fight that, beat back this big force of nature that'll chop you up, eat you up, burn you up, kill you.
Okay.
And then you get wealth and you get a girl. But then when the Christians got involved, the idea of dragon was already there because it's so deep, right? Like a big challenge or a big something to overcome for a man, typically a man. And then they interjected their idea of Lucifer, who's Satan, right? The devil who's much more insidious, like he's the human darkness, the heart of the human darkness, right? The slither and the snake of the human soul. And then the dragon becomes one with this idea of Satan, like the dragon is both sneaky, malicious, hateful, right? Cunning, thinking.
Yeah.
That's a scary dragon. Then the dragon stories from that point on are different, a little different. Or you have dragon stories that are different. They're about people having to do battle with a more intelligent foe, aka the dragon.
Oh, it's not the beast anymore.
It's not just overcome the beast. It's this thing is in every way smarter, better, stronger, faster, more intelligent, connected, and it's hateful and malicious and evil and all that kind of stuff. Because the idea of Satan is now, Satan's a very human thing. Satan is the dark part, right? So you put that into a beast, and you got like one really nasty thing. And also, if you hear like the dragon in Christian lore, and if people who are infused with Christianity talk about a dragon, they mean Satan or the devil. They're not talking about like some mythology. They only have one worldview, the Christian worldview. So the dragons fit into that somehow.
Okay.
And they're not pluralistic. They're not thinking, oh yeah, well the dragon in China means this and that. They just absorb it all and think, this is what it must mean. Phoenix. The rising from destruction?
I mean, that's Western mythology. The phoenix is a bird that rises from
the destruction, from the fire.
Yeah.
Hope, right? It's hope.
But Chinese phoenix is like the dragon, but on the female side.
Yeah, I see the Chinese oolong.
No, oolong is not phoenix.
No, every time I see like a lot of oolong art has like a dragon and a phoenix like fighting on it, or it's a common motif like on teapots. You see like a dragon and a phoenix like wrestling.
I think that's
or like
just
flying in a circle. Like
that's just a symbol of like wealth, noble.
That is the sugared down version that has been passed down to you. Everything, because you know why? You ask your mom, what's this mean when you're a kid? She don't know. She go, make you rich, make you happy. And she asked her mom, maybe her mom said, don't talk about Mao come and chop me. So your mom had to make it all up. You know what I'm talking about? So I think that a lot of those things, and not just China, I'm not just bagging on China, but we get lost. Where do you get the information what that means from?
I mean, first of all, it's like this way. It's kind of bagua. It's kind of like bagua.
You Chinese like circles.
Yeah.
Because you noticed.
Yin and yang.
You noticed early in the human recorded history that things are cyclical and that the true form of the universe is a cycle and a circle. Whereas somehow we, in our ignorance in the West, came up with the idea of the universe is a line moving from one direction to another direction. It's going somewhere, right? And you guys are like, it is somewhere. And this is how this somewhere acts. It acts like this. It spirals, right? The bagua, in balance. Sometimes more, sometimes less, right?
Yeah,
you guys like the circle?
That symbol usually you only see in the something related to the emperor.
Oh yeah.
Like now, only the emperor can wear a clothes that has that kind of symbol.
The Romans used to have that with colors. The purple was the...
Purple?
Isn't that strange?
That's strange.
I think it comes from... The purple they used to use came from sea urchins that they would smash up.
See what?
Those little spiky black balls that had little spikes all over them. They're not significant creatures. If you ever saw one, you wouldn't think much about it. They're just little spike balls that live under the ocean. They look like a little seed pod They're like the size of a golf ball. They're black, and they've got lots of little spikes. Lots
Chinese
of
eat
those.
those.
Yeah, I know. Japanese do too.
Okay.
Tastes weird, but it's
Yeah.
special taste.
Mm-hmm.
We had some when we was at sushi bar in
Do we?
Tokyo. Yeah,
Oh, and it chopped
uni.
through.
Mm-hmm. It's like orange paste.
Yeah.
It's not
Well,
my
one
favorite.
bad memory about that is one time my mom got a bag of it. It's dried, so soak it up overnight and then next day cook.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't realize you need to wash inside.
Oh,
A bunch of sand.
this is just sand. I thought you were gonna say you got sick.
No, it's just a bunch of sand. I took one bite. I was like, Mom, did
That's
you
not my
wash it?
favorite. Well, I think that's what they use to grind up to make the dye. Because think about
Okay.
those little things I love.
Mm-hmm.
Is wow, back in the day, purple was like so important that you get in trouble if you wore purple. Now we think like, who gives a shit? If you like purple, just wear purple, right?
Yeah.
Just buy something purple. You want purple.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look into all the dye industry,
Mm-hmm.
they have to make them somehow. Now with modern synthetics, and they manipulate light by changing
Yeah.
polymers.
The old time has to be natural from
It
somewhere.
has to be.
Uh-huh.
Where else does it come from? So
Blueberry.
they find nuts, they find berries, they find
Sunflower.
pigments from roots or from flowers
Mm-hmm.
or from all those sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to extract and set the dye.
Mm-hmm.
So then you can't just use it for everything. That's why indigo is so amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Because indigo is not blue. Indigo is a chemical transformation that happens.
Oxidized become blue.
It's weird, right?
But what's the flower looks like? Or is it from flower or from root? Or from
The
leaves?
leaf.
So it's green.
It's a deep green.
Okay.
The indigo that I saw was in like Meow land,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are
Southeast-
famous for indigo.
Southeast China, North Vietnam, and they just had big barrels of green leaves.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "What is that?" And like, it's the indigo, and they put their hands in. Their hands are all blue up to their.
Okay, so
arms.
they put a hand in, crush the leaf, and the juice
the
come
leaf.
out, and then oxidize
I
and
think
then become blue.
the way they do it naturally, and the way that they could have done it a long time ago without
Mm-hmm.
modern technology, is you take wood ash.
Wood, like
Yeah, you burn down some wood,
ash?
and then you take the ash,
Uh-huh.
and I don't know if it's got to be a particular type or what, or you got to do something, and you let that soak, and then it releases a chemical, like a harmful chemical,
Mm-hmm.
but that chemical also breaks down the components in the leaves,
Mm-hmm.
and then you put that into the mixture and let the leaves break down,
Mm-hmm.
and then it lets the dye out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you take like a salt or a grind up type of stone that would have a particular type of mineral in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like now we use soda ash,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, or soda, right? But I guess that they just put something, and then you dip it in. Those create the bond. Like one broke the chemical down and broke it out, and one creates the bond with the fabric.
Yeah, they were
And then
just
when you-
attached to
It attaches to all the molecules of the
Mhm.
cotton or the organic material. It doesn't have to be cotton; it'll dye wool really well. I think it just has to be organic. It's probably connecting to the carbon or something.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, it's connecting. It doesn't matter, but it doesn't like lock. And then when you pull it out, the oxygen forces it to lock,
Okay.
and that's what forces it to lock into the organic material, and that's why the blue like stays in the
Mm-hmm.
material, or that's why the chemical stays in the material. And I don't have any clue why, but that's why it goes from that weird neon green when you pull it out to that deep blue, because the oxygen is like pushing in on that chemical.
Yeah, the neon green is really
That's so
strange.
weird, so weird.
Yeah.
You never see that color
You
anymore.
pull out, it's neon green, so like, what?
Oh, indigo's so cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's hard to even get indigo. That guy down in Bloomington who's growing indigo, I wanted to buy some of his indigos when we were dying.
Mm-hmm.
And
Is he still growing
he
indigo?
grows it, but he sells every crop he sells before he even starts it.
Like
He
pre-order?
sells the whole crop. The whole crop's sold before he even starts to grow it.
Can we grow it here?
He grows it in southern Indiana.
Or can we grow it here?
I don't know. I mean, the soil here is pretty poor.
Okay.
We could probably grow it in southern Indiana if we bought farmland if we wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Saying, he spent his whole life doing this, man. He was living in Japan, working on indigo farms in Japan, learning this proper technique. I don't think it's a simple toss some seeds down. I think you gotta do it right.
Okay.
It's his life. He's cool. But I wanted to buy some of his indigo because I wanted to dye with the natural indigo when we had it. Sold out. I wanted to buy some of his indigo seeds. Sold out.
They even sell seed?
Because I thought at least I'll just do one little raised
patch
garden
here.
patch or raised pot and grow a little of our own and dye a few items with indigo that we grew. It'd be cool. Sold out. He sells it all out. It's crazy, right? In the whole country, you can't hardly find this stuff. It's not industrially grown because they can make synthetic indigo. Like, it doesn't matter.
True.
You can make it super easy.
And synthetic indigo can dye anything, not just organic.
That's fine. But there's there's a demand for it in the natural ways, the old ways. I've been listening to Graham Hancock, which is always dangerous. It's that guy who wrote that the book about the Holy Grail in Ethiopia. The sign of the seal.
Yeah.
And he's on a kick about mushrooms. He's talking about mushrooms on Rogan. And he was just talking about him. Actually, it wasn't really his push. There's a young guy who's a lawyer. This is funny. So this guy goes to law school, right? He becomes a lawyer. He gets married, has a kid. And before he went to law school, he was a classicist. So he studied like Latin and Greek in the ancient world.
What do you call it?
Classicist, classics, the classic period.
Okay.
Rome.
Okay.
Greece. So he liked that stuff, but no job, right? It rings a bell. It kind of reminds me of my religious studies, philosophy. Anyway. So he goes to law school, gets a wife, all that stuff. But he's always interested in this, right? And he can read the Bible in Greek, which is one of the original languages, and he sees these things like, he thinks that there's a connection between a lot of these ancient Greek and ancient Latin and ancient Near East things in Christianity. So he's just, as a hobby, is digging into it. Long story short, it's a long conversation, and he wrote a book about it. He found a connection with psychoactive wheat, basically a beer that has a fungus in it. And the fungus is similar to LSD. It's actually the same fungus that the guy who invented LSD was experimenting with when he synthesized LSD.
Okay.
But that's been happening forever. And so he's got curious about it. He said, this is really weird. I really think that there's something to this. All the evidence points towards this one fungus that happens with cultivation, like barley, wheat cultivation, right? So he starts looking around the world, all the different things. And the Germans actually know quite a bit about it because they brew beer. So they know all about wheat and they know all about fungus and all that stuff. So they say, yeah, it's terrible. You get it all the time. It happens all the time. It's almost impossible to avoid.
Wait, so let me get it straight. So the wheat sometimes will get this fungus, sometimes it doesn't. And if you do get the fungus, then
it can be deadly. It can drive you insane. It cannot be that bad. And it can make you trip like crazy.
But you cannot tell until you drink it.
I mean, we're talking about ancient standards. Health
Okay.
standards. I mean, I don't know how.
There's no health department checking out every
I don't know
course.
how. I'm not saying they weren't rigorous in their own way, but they may have allowed some fungus to slip through. They probably weren't dousing everything in chemicals and pesticides to make sure it didn't exist, right? Natural processes. And if the Germans are saying, even these days in modern stills, you get these infestations because it happens, right? It can really mess up your batch. And if you're brewing beer and you get this stuff, it can be a tainted thing. So that answers the story of how they may have accidentally encountered this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, maybe after they accidentally encountered it, they found out when you get a good one, or when you can do it just right, it makes you trip hardcore, like LSD style trip, right? And they start tripping, and they start creating this trip, and they start doing this as like a secret society. And he's not just speculating. That's the difference between this guy and Hancock. I like Hancock. Hancock will take a piece of evidence and he'll say, that could mean blah, 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 blah. And he makes a lot of weak statements that are very interesting. That's cool. It makes your mind fresh and interested, right? And a lot of it, it makes sense. But he doesn't have good evidence for a lot of those fantastic things, right?
Okay.
This guy didn't move forward until he had evidence. It took him over a decade to write this book. So he only moved forward with evidence. And he found an evidence trail all the way through and went through the ancient world, found these clay pots that have traces of this fungus still inside the clay because of all this dating, all this chemical work. That
Where the hell did he find those?
Dude, his wife hates him. His wife wanted to divorce him. She's like, you're supposed to be a lawyer and you're traveling all over the world. You're spending all your money like flying to Greece to meet some archaeologists and doing all this shit. That's why he was just obsessed with it because he really thought, or he wrote a book about it again. So he really thinks that this is an important part of human history, and this went through empires. It didn't just happen once. It spanned time. This is like the deep, long religion that's been lost that nobody knows about. Or here's this is a little side point. He thinks they all do know about it, the big religions, and that's like a secret part of Christianity. It's a secret part of some religions, and they just keep it buried because they don't want people to actually take drugs or anything.
Okay.
They keep it secret, man, because it always was secret. Even in those days, it was secret. If you used it anywhere outside of the club, death sentence. And only a few elite could be allowed into the club.
So his point is, sometime in the old days, there were a bunch of Christians gathered together. And
way before Christians were doing it. Yeah, but then when
beer.
the Christians came around, they were still drinking this trippy beer.
Okay.
And he thinks that has a lot to do with the wording, those visions that you see, the things that they talk about, the ideas, right? But they kept it sacred and secret so they could go partake of it, and they were afraid if they just let everybody have it or let everybody know about it, everybody would be going crazy all the time.
Yeah, you can't control it.
You can't control that shit,
yeah.
right? So they started to make regulations on who can use it, when you can use it, right? So he had to search it out because it was confined, and unfortunately, the area it was confined to that they knew about in Greece, it was a big archaeological dig. So they dug up all the stuff. That's not necessarily bad, but what they did is they treated all of the artifacts
with chemicals,
and it washed everything out. So he lost all of it. He was really bummed out. He said he was stuck there for a while. But then he got to thinking, the Greek Empire was the whole world, basically, Spain to Asia.
So let's go somewhere else.
And he went to Spain, and he found in Spain the edge of that Greek Empire during the time of this. Some of these vessels, same vessel, same size, same everything, right? Clearly Greek artifact, dated. It was just the edge of the empire. And they didn't give a shit because the cops were way over there. So they were doing it, even though they weren't supposed to be doing it by punishment of death. And that's when he found the vessels and found that they were these...
Wait, what punishment by death?
If you were bootlegging this secret beer, this secret intoxicant...
Okay. But
the
it's
magic
in
one.
Spain. It's too far away.
Yeah, who the hell cares? We're way out here. Who's gonna do nothing about it, right? And so they were doing it out there, and probably all over the place. And so now he found some evidence. So he continued his book, but he's continuing to search for more evidence to strengthen the case that this was a widespread phenomenon, and that it was something that happened consistently throughout history before the Greeks, all the way up through the Greeks, past the Greeks, through into Christianity. And when did it get lost? We don't know yet. But if more people study about this and it becomes like a topic of archaeology, then wow, we'll really learn about a lot of the mindsets. Because, back to our original topic. When we talk about some stuff, dragging this, that, it just seems crazy. Like, who cares, right? If we were to talk to your mom about this, she'd just be like, well, it's old stories, right? Like, we moved on. People don't worry about that stuff no more.
Yeah.
Now it's more important, what we're doing in our daily life. But that's because we don't have access to the same mindset on the regular that some of these people were actually dealing with, right? If you go to church now, chances are the pastor or priest isn't going and tripping out hardcore, right? He's not going like, I need to come up with my sermon. I'm going to go take a bunch of acid and go wander around in the mountains and see what is revealed to me and then come tell the people. That's probably not what's happening. I would go to that church.
I would go to that church too.
Except if it was these days and that's what the pastor was doing, he'd probably come back and try to sleep with everybody. But in those days, in the old times, that may have been the way. What wisdom? What do you know more than anybody else? There's no internet, there's no books, there's no nothing. We're all wandering around in the desert.
That makes me think about the old wise men or old monk who are wise. They usually stay in the mountain alone by themselves. Maybe they're tripping out the whole time in the mountain.
Hell yeah, man. Well, there's so much. I love this kind of stuff because it branches in so many ways. The East, you guys are the Himalayas, right? And China is so karst, like the mountains and the valleys are so steep, easy to isolate, right? People on foot just go wandering off in each direction, right? They don't have any as many drugs up there. There's just not as much stuff in the Amazon or in the North American continent or all these places. There's all sorts of mushrooms. There's all sorts of vines and bugs and frogs. Everything makes you trip.
Oh, that kind of drug you're talking about.
Yeah, psychedelics. But up in the mountains, what do they got? So
Herbs?
They're up there making herb, maybe smoking a little weed, because I think weed's from the North India. I think that's where it's from. That's not that crazy of a psychedelic. You can eat a lot of it, I guess. But they're just meditating, and that takes your mind to a crazy, trippy place. I think that that's what they're doing, just trying to break their mind open and see something different, and then they can convey it. But do the monks, the old time monks, they don't typically like make a point to go talk to people. They're just like, I'm good. Like, I'm up here because y'all are crazy. Isn't that more like what it,
you want to talk to me? Come see me.
You want to talk to me? You come up the mountain, man. I got good weed up here. Yeah, this is very strange. The monks that I met in the Himalaya, they were just chilling. They weren't really like, welcome, let me tell you the good word. Have you ever heard about Buddha? Let me talk to you about Buddha. None of them were ever like that.
What are they doing?
Just hanging out. Just walking around, drinking water, just wearing cool robes and just living in a cave. Like, whatever, man. They weren't doing anything that would make you think that you're in a cult or that you should be scared away.
Yeah.
But if you went up and found a bunch of Christian people out living in the wilderness or something like that,
something is going on.
Something's going on. Something's going down.
Yeah.
Maybe the FBI should be involved. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. You don't even know. I don't know why it's like that. I think that they've had such a long time to develop that it's not as strange. Oh, I think we're out too.
Oh, cool.
I was walking one time, and this was in Nepal, and there's a area that they say is where the historical monk Milarepa used to live. Milarepa, the story made it into China too. You probably have a different name for him, but his story was he was a poor boy, and every bad thing happened to his family, and so he'd go away to the mountains and he learned yoga, learned like qigong, stuff like that, right? And he learned black magic because he's meditated and all the forces of nature, right?
Yeah.
And now he has power of like fire, lightning, ice, wind, all that kind of stuff.
Okay,
and he can
the black wizard.
Yeah, he gets the powers of the black wizard, right? And so he comes back and vengeance on the people who messed up his village and messed up his family.
Okay.
Okay, and then he feels so bad about it that he goes and spends his life like peacefully doing meditations, trying to cultivate like a good personality, good life for himself, for the people, because he felt so guilty about his past sin. Because he has this power, but he's like, don't use it, it's not worth it, it ruins everything. That's the basic story of this guy. Pretty cool. I think it's a Tibetan myth, like he's a Tibetan guy, right? So probably made its way through China and down to India equally because it's there from Tibet.
Will make sense.
Cool story. It's kind of a different one than what I never hear stories like that. Some guy just go off, learn black magic, and then come vengeance everybody, and then feel bad about it.
Feel bad about
it. Feel bad about it, and then spend his life living in that cave. Well, I went to what they say is the cave where the guy. I mean, whatever. What I believe is.
Which part, Tibet?
I mean, this is the borderlands between Tibet and Nepal. I think legally still Nepal. But this.
Okay.
As far as the ancient world, nobody would think it's any different. It's the same.
Yeah.
It's the same. It's all Tibetan people. It's the same, right? But politically, it's different. And I don't know, man. It was a cool place. There was a lot of caves there, actually. So it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of different guys were going up there at certain different times. And there was a guy living up there at that point. Tibetan Gurung, they call them in Nepal. It's just Tibetan people
Okay.
living up there. He was living up there full time. The funny thing is, there's all these caves, but he didn't live in one of the caves. He built a little shed.
Okay.
And he had a water pump, and he would go and put nice things on all the caves to respecting the ancestors. He was like the guardian of the place, sort of thing, like the
That's
groundskeeper.
Cool.
Yeah, he was cool.
Mm.
And I went up there. I didn't know anybody was up there. He kind of scared me because I went up there, and somebody told me to go check it out. It was a bit of a hike, like a pretty solid, like walk up the mountain. And I'm tired. I'm the only one up there. I'm thinking I'm the only one here. So who the hell else would be up here?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a water pump or whatever. So I'm walking around, and the guy's just like, no sound or nothing. And all of a sudden he's.
Look at you like this.
All of a sudden he's there. No. Probably I was not the first or last one to do something like this. Obviously, somebody told me about it. And he was just kind of like, water is here. And then go off sweeping. I'm like, oh, what the hell? I just like invaded this guy's little world, you know? That was kind of
But he speaks English?
Just enough to tell me like water here or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Again, probably a lot of people went up there.
Yeah.
It was pretty special.
Cool life.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Just like the shrine keeper or something like that.
Shrine keeper, yeah. And these caves were really what you'd expect a trippy old yoga guy to live in. Mm-hmm. First you see the mountain. Wow, it's like a castle. Mm-hmm. Big spiky pointy castle. Mm-hmm. It's because those Himalaya mountains are so sharp like that. It's really crazy. And then the cave entrance is just like cartoon style cave entrance, just like a boom, like a cave, right? And when you're thinking, wow, what is it going to be? Because I've been in caves before in America. They're usually like tunnels,
right.
dark and cold. As soon as you walk into these caves, I think it's because of the wind. Mm-hmm. It's just like a room. Mm. As soon as you walk in, it's like a big oval room with soft walls, and maybe a lot of it they did the work themselves and chipped away at it.
I was thinking they reshaped it.
They probably widened it out, right? Yeah. And the ground was all like sand. Mm. I think maybe because the wind for millennia is blowing into these places, or maybe they did it on purpose. I don't know. It didn't speak to me like man-made. They felt they seemed natural to me. It was like smooth stones, like felt like wind, or I thought at the time that was maybe what it was. Is that wind was blowing in there. Okay. But there were like rooms.
One big room.
Just one big room, but there's multiple caves all along the mountainside. One here, one here, one here, one here. One here, one here, one here. There's caves all over. It's like just holes in the mountain, you know. And then you go in and it's a room. I'm like, wow.
Weird. Why naturally got so many holes?
No idea. It's cool though, right? And you go in and you're like, I could totally see a dude being like, I could live here, you know, like.
Just got a house.
Yeah, you don't got to do nothing for it. You just walk in and there's a nice big room. A big room. I'm not talking. You wouldn't be crowded. You'd be in a big, comfortable room. You just set a fire in there, and you'd be fine. You could live up there if you could get food and whatnot. I thought it was a trip that there was multiple caves like that.
Speaking of caves, talking about something creepy. You heard the hanging coffin in China? Mm-mm. It's like, I forgot where exactly it is. It's like some mountain, and you will walk in a valley or a river. I don't recall exactly, and there will be some mountain on each side, and there will be some holes like far up there.
Holes.
And there will be some dead body there. Oh shit! That's why it's called hanging coffin.
Why?
I don't know.
They put the bodies up there?
I don't know who they put the body there and how they put the body there.
I don't know anything about those. Where is it?
You need to look it up. I couldn't remember.
It reminds me of something though. It's a bit of a creepy story. I'll tell you, and then we'll call it the end.
Okay.
Of the night. This is in Cambodia. And I go into Cambodia from Thailand. And take a cab into town. And boom, there you are. Pop up and there's nobody nowhere. Right? Nobody knows you. Nobody gives a shit. It's just like, Cambodia, welcome, right?
As long as you're not communist.
That was Indonesia.
Oh, okay.
Anyway,
Uh-huh.
so I spend the night and I wake up and the same thing. And nobody, what am I doing here? Oh, I was there to renew my visa, but that's beside the story. And then some kid just, hey mister, buy me a Coca-Cola or whatever. God, it's hundreds of these kinds of kids all over Southeast Asia. And, whatever, sometimes I do, because kid wants a Coke, I don't really care. You know what I mean? Kid wants a Coca-Cola, fine. It's not that big of a deal for me, so I buy the kid a Coca-Cola. And he's, haha, I'm happy, right? And he said, come on with me, you give me some money, little money. I'll show you some around today, right? Your tour guide, right? The kids speak little English because that's how they can make some money from the tourists that come in. And so I'm like, yeah, I mean, why not? I really have nothing else to do. Like, I have to wait for 3 days to get my visa renewed for Thailand.
Got it.
I can go, so fine, dude, let's go. This little kid, like 10 years old, skinny, just wearing a pair of sweatpants, that's it.
A little boy?
Little boy, yeah. And he's like, give me whatever, $1, $2 to show you around, right? And I know at this point, it's $1 now, and then $1 later, and then $1 later. Of course, I know
I'll
that.
take
right?
you a picture, and it's $1.
That's their thing.
Yeah.
I don't care. Again, don't really care. They don't have nothing to do. So this kid take me around, take me to this the hotel, this to this, and pay him a little bit, this to this. And then he said, okay, I got one more thing I just got to show you. It's hiking. I said, yeah, okay, I love hiking. Let's go. And so I pay him one. And we're going up this mountain, and he say, this is the spot. And I'm like, this is not that spectacular. It's just like we're on a hill, not that far from the town, right? I can see there's some pretty cool hills and mountains here. I'm wondering what his thing is, right? And there's a hole, like a cave hole. He said, down here, we go down here. I'm like, wow, this is gonna be kind of creepy. Like, that's cool. Like we can do that, right? And there's a rope there, so it's not like nobody goes there, right? But I never would have found this place.
Going down?
Yeah, he's going down this cave, into this cave, right? And so he said, hold the rope. And I said, hold the rope. And we go down, and it opens up, and there's like a big room, like a pretty big room. And there's some corridors and so on. This for sure was
man-made?
Yeah, man-made, partially man-made at least, right? Like blown out or whatever, right? And there was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dead bodies down there.
Like skulls?
Skulls and bones. It was like a mountain of dead bodies and skulls and bones.
Wow, it sounds like a book,
and
like
I was
storybook.
like, what the fuck? I mean, I knew. I'm not piecing this together one piece at a time. I knew there was a genocide there. And I may have known just before that or whatever that that's where he was taking me to, like someplace like that. But I was not prepared to see that. I wasn't prepared. I thought maybe we'd go down and I don't know. I didn't know 100% what was going to go down, right? Maybe he'd say this is where they killed somebody and I'd be like, oh, okay, right? But there was it was like a giant mass grave of
what happened there, do you
murdered
know?
people. They had to kill everybody, man.
Was it a war or something?
Like a purge, like a civil genocide, a civil war genocide. The Khmer Rouge, which was the red Khmer. The people of Cambodia speak Khmer.
Okay.
The ancient kingdom is called the Khmer.
Okay.
They're the ones who built the crazy temples that get on all the postcards, right? The Khmer, Khmer. Okay, and so they go through their history. They come to the modern era. Nothing happening, right? Some communism comes or whatever. I don't know if the Cambodians were fighting against the communists or if the Khmer Rouge were communists. I don't really know.
Okay.
Something like that. But just that period of time, Vietnam War era time, there was a lot of fighting, blood, and violence because those places were totally chaotic.
So it's not that long ago.
No, like surviving people know this history.
Okay.
It's like there's probably some 80-year-old people who lived through it.
And that cave was probably in that area.
Yeah, I mean this is like modern era.
And then you already
massacre.
skull.
Yeah, it wouldn't take long.
Okay.
What would it take? A couple of years, 5 years, 10 years. Probably been at least 50 years since all that. And I don't know. We can look up when the Khmer Rouge did all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's not that long ago. It's modern history. And there was just hundreds and hundreds of dead bodies and bones, and the kid was like totally used to it. He was picking up bones, clacking them around, like no give a shit at all. It was really like, it struck a nerve, right? Because here I am trying to feel like sacredness. Like, wow, I should be quiet and all this stuff. This is crazy. And the kid, look, here, take a photo. Like, take the skull, hold the skull, take a photo, smile. And I'm like, no, kid, no, like, I ain't touching it, man. That's just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that vibe was kind of permeated throughout Cambodia, because everyone was like, what are you gonna do about it? Just cry about it? Just fucking live on. Everybody was just hustling and bustling. It didn't really seem like everybody was like, oh, the world sucks, we got totally murdered. It was a group of people that just took over the country and said, anybody who's against our movement is like, evil. And the leader went to the farm. It's like the communist revolutions. Go to the farmlands, go to the poor people, say, all the rich people take all your money. Why are you working so hard every day and they got all the money? And the dumb people go, I don't know why. It's because they stole it all from you.
Yeah.
Oh, really? I never thought that. Yeah, they stole all the money from you. You want it back, you gotta go kill them all.
Well, I guess they are supporting communists.
It's like communist style. Take all. It doesn't have to be communism. They just use the same way.
True.
And so that's what happened. And they get all the poor farmers. They kill everybody. They succeeded. That's the sad thing. Kill the teachers. Everybody who had a chance to ran, came to different countries or went to, U.S. or came wherever, refugee style. And professors, teachers, lawmakers, politicians, doctors, lawyers.
So all the educated people.
Dead. Killed or scared away. Because they used to have French influence.
So is Vietnam, right?
Yeah. Vietnam, Cambodia. Yeah. Malaysia was British. No, Malaysia had British influence. Myanmar, aka Burma, aka, I think they might even have a new name now. British. Thailand, Japanese, and maybe they maintain their independence better than most. I know they got taken over by the Japanese during World War II.
Makes sense.
As a lot of that area did. I don't know about colony-wise. But definitely the colonial areas of Cambodia. Then they fought all the colonials out. Anybody who tugging anything European, died, shot, dead, lost. They didn't have anything left. And so then the country's destroyed. All that's left is warlords who conquered everybody. There's no wealth. Nobody knows what the hell they're doing because they killed or chased everybody out. And the country went to hell. It's totally poor, poverty. Nobody can make ends meet. And it's just a mess. And they were trying to rebuild it, but it's just, there's no law, there's no order, there's no morality, there's no religion. Everything's destroyed, man. It's wild. It's a weird country. A lot of sex slaves, and the police get drunk and just shoot their guns off. It's a weird ass place. The police just hanging out at the bar. The police station and the bar are the same place. They just hang out at the bar, drinking, hardcore drinking, not like having a beer. Like getting wasted drunk and go out. What kind of country is that? That's the police. They're protecting you. They're the biggest gangster. I wasn't there any much longer than I had to be.
Yeah.
I heard a lot of people say they had good experience. A couple people got a pickpocket or something like that.
Probably only stay in the tourist area.
I just felt,
Don't do anything stupid.
Yeah, exactly. I just felt a little bit like, it's not my battle. This seems like I wasn't preparing for this. I wasn't trying to get into this. I was just kind of like, I just want to go back to Thailand because I got a lot of good things going on there. But that talking about caves and dead people, that stuck with me.
Yeah.
At least in Europe, I went to a place in Europe that had 1,000 dead people, skeletons and bones, but they built a castle out of it. Or they built that's putting it funny. They were all plague victims.
Oh.
So there's lots and lots of dead bodies. And they couldn't bury them. Because the buried bodies were popping up out of the ground when it would rain, so they couldn't bury them. And so the monk at the time, or the guy who was living in the church or taking care of the church, used the dead bones and stacked them up very beautifully, if I can say that.
Wait, they built the castle using the bone?
It was already a stone church.
Okay.
all these people start dying, and they kept bringing the dead to the guy because that's what you used to do to bury them, right? But they became so many. There's nothing to do. When you bury them, they pop up out of the ground because there's buried on buried on buried on buried. There's too many dead bodies in the ground. You can't even bury them all. So the guy starts collecting the bones and stacking them up very neatly and nicely, right? As respect in the church. But there's more and more and more, and it never stops. It's like a constant flow of dead bodies and bones. And so he starts building beautiful structures out of the bones, like inside. The walls are lined with skulls, like beautifully. And then they use leg bones and build a chandelier and build like a little table and chairs. And there's all this stuff made out of human bones that the guy built.
Still sounds creepy.
Oh, dude, it was creepy. Like 100%. It was creepy. But you got the feeling like the guy was
trying.
He was trying. What else was he supposed to do? Just have a pile of dead bodies, you know? So he was using the people to beautify the church. It's all he had. He had nothing but time and dead bodies. So he just used all their skulls and bones. And there were stacks of skulls, like big piles of skulls. And he made like little tunnels into them. Like he would leave like one skull missing. So you could look all the way through the pile. And if somebody else would go on that side and put their head there, and then you'd stand there and look like their head was like, it was weird. Yeah, he did like little visual trippy things. That was a creepy place, but it wasn't because they murdered all those people. They were just dead from the plague, you know.
Yeah, sad. I heard there's a lot of dead body in Italy during the coronavirus.
Oh, really? Recently?
I mean, we just saw a photo of them stacking in the square in front of church.
Do you know where it was? Like Naples or was it like South Italy?
No idea. That was a while ago. I think they're losing out now. So
Italy's a weird place.
It's for the tea.
Yeah. Well, help digest the 10,000 calories Sun King burger.